Hello, welcome back to the Rest in Peace podcast where we talk about all of the creative things. I am Angie, and this is my lovely co-host Bailey. And yes, we're wearing the same clothes because we're recording the second episode right after the first episode. So if you can see us on YouTube, yes, this is still the same makeup that I had last time. It's holding out. I feel like it's holding out. Oh, thank you. I'm just fishing for compliments now at this point. So this is episode 2, and we're going to talk, I think, a little bit about writing. We're going to try and stay on topic this time. I mean, we can't promise anything.
No way.
But I don't think our listeners, our cloves, are really going to care. You know, I think they're going to be up for this random stuff, and I'm going to keep using that. Yes, I am. My garlic cloves. How are you doing, Bailey?
I'm good. I feel like I'm creatively stunted a lot. So this will be a good back and forth between us, I think, because I think a lot of the time I get really in my head and not that you don't, Angie, but I think you're better at unraveling and compartmentalizing things a little bit. Whereas I like to spin things like spaghetti and just on a fork and just, like,
the food references will never stop in this
will never
podcast.
stop. Obviously, I'm hungry. No, so I think I think that we're the perfect, example of what happens when we're the same person but you're opposite to each other, kind of thing.
Yes,
we always say that about each other a lot. That we have very different,
same but different.
Yeah, same but different. Exactly. So, Angie, why don't you kick us off and tell us like what you're doing and how you got there, basically.
Oh, jeez. That sounds so dramatic.
Oh, sorry.
Tell me your life story.
Yeah,
no, it's fine.
So you were born, right? Yeah.
So I was born, and then things happened, and now I'm here. No, I'm like I mentioned in the first episode, I'm working on my second book in the series, which is a long time coming. Like, let's not mince words. I wrote that first book in 2011. It went out in 2020. Can't remember now. Did I 2019? 2019. Oh my God, I should be really better at this stuff. That doesn't sound right though. It was almost 10 years. Was it right?
I thought it was 2019.
Math, not our... Look, if you're here for math, you are in the wrong place because these girls do not do math. Go. Okay? We appreciate your listening, but we are not here for the math. Regardless, this book came out in 2019 for my 40th birthday. We're just going to use those dates. But I worked on it for years. Like, I was writing that book for years. And this book is no different. This book I probably wrote in 2013, the first draft. 2012. We're in 2025. Like, I am not super great at the getting things out. I'm trying though, and I'm gonna make the commitment that I will be better for the next series of books.
Well, I don't think that's fair to you, Angie, because I think there's a lot more of background things that go into indie publishing. Other than being traditionally published. I think there's a lot of decisions to make. I think that takes a while. And that's just not even mentioning the creative process, So be nicer to yourself.
It is. This is what Bailey does. She talks me off that ledge of me being like, everything sucks, and Bailey's like, no, it's not. But we do that for each other, so in different ways. But my point is that like being creatively stuck is something I'm also familiar with, because I mean, you would think after publishing your first novel and already have your second novel, at least in first or second draft, I lost count of drafts, and the third one in the series also done, like not done, but first draft written. You think it would have been enough motivation for me to be like, great, I'm on that roll, let's keep going. But I promptly was like, here's my book, and goodbye. And I stopped doing anything with it. I was, but I think I got up in my head a little bit, and it is a lot of work. It's a lot of work to self-publish, and there are people who are super here for all the other things that involves with not the writing part of it, like the marketing and all the other shit. I'm not here for that. I'm here for the writing. Okay. but that's what I'm doing. So, yeah. So, I mean, that's it in a nutshell. I did take quite a bit of a break, but this year it's coming out. After I've said that the last couple of years, it's coming out this year with the help of Bailey, which I don't think I would be able to do this without her. So big props to my friend Bailey here.
As usual,
Who's
that
getting this book out with
compliments
me?
make me uncomfortable. So that's no, Angie's a tour de force. I feel like she just does everything, like she writes, she does, the she says she doesn't do the marketing, but she does, and she does the cover design, and it's just like I don't know how I can't even decide what for breakfast. Like, so I don't know how she makes all these decisions like so well. So why don't you tell us about that, Angie? Like, what is your process, and
Yeah.
what is your, what do you like to do to get yourself motivated and stuff like that?
Well, I think my driving force is that I'm stubborn as hell. And so once I've made a decision, I don't let myself not continue on, which is good and bad because I do work a full-time job. I'm not going to get into jobs, but like, let's just say I'm a paper pusher for a living and I work full-time during the day. And then I have to work full-time in the evening. And it's not every day. Like the last few months have been me just logging into the computer, different computer, and just working all evening. But it's because I finally made the decision that I wasn't going to let another year go by without the second book done. And so once I've made that little determination in my head, then there's pretty much no stopping me because I'm stubborn. But it takes a while for me to get to that point because I will make all the excuses in the world to figure out why I don't want to keep going. And I have for many years. Like there was I said many years, like, I'm not going to do this anymore. Like I'm done. Which I've tried to do many times. And that's just fear and probably exhaustion talking. I really honestly don't know how indie writers, publish as frequently as they do, unless maybe they don't have full-time jobs. I have no idea. Like I don't know how people do it. Like, cause it's a freaking lot. Like to balance everything.
It is. It is. So you say you're
Yeah.
like stubborn. Do you feel like you're stubborn in
Yeah.
other areas of life too, or is it just when it comes to like creative passions?
No, I'm stubborn. I'm generally stubborn. About everything. Um, yeah, honestly, like the biggest thing for me is the starting. Once I have that momentum, I'm good to go. Like I'm the kind of person that has to keep going because the starting is difficult. And that's everything in my life, like exercising and eating well or what, insert random thing here. Like it's the starting of it that's hard. But once I have that momentum and I keep going, then I'm fine. Like I can keep going. And that's what I've been doing for the last little while is literally just, okay, we're doing some, a little bit of work today on it. It doesn't have to be a lot. That's another thing. Like I'm always used to like tuning in and focusing in. Like I want, 8 hours to work on the book, not an hour. So I've had to kind of get over that. But I think that's like the driving force is just, I'm not letting myself off the hook this time because for me, I'm externally motivated too. Like if you give me a deadline, I can reach it. But when it comes to this and you're indie publishing, you need to be internally motivated.
You do.
And it's tricking your way to do it any way you possibly can.
Well, I think that's it is getting started, but also finding the balance between,
Yep.
starting and keeping going. I like,
Yeah.
I just know for me, like my process is that I spend about 20 minutes a day doing it. And I know you spend a lot longer. But you're able to kind of do that. I think you come from a place where you are able to sit down and really dig in and do that. So I think there's room for both. But I'd love to
Oh,
hear more
100%.
about your like digging in. Like what does that look like to you?
Yeah. Yeah, like so I mean I think it's definitely not for everybody because like I get very single-minded. I also am an artist. I don't work on art as often as I used to, but I used to paint and do mixed media art, and I would lose hours. Like I would sit down and forget to eat, forget to go to the bathroom, forget everything, which is not great either. It's that flow state, right? Like flow state is basically when you get into something so well that nothing else matters, right? And it's hard. I find it's hard to get into flow state nowadays just because everything is so like a little bit here, a little bit there, whatever, like we're instant gratification and we want stuff changing and whatever different. But if you like, for me, when I get into that flow state, like, yeah, like I when I edit videos or whatever I'm doing, like I can lose hours, but that's also not good because I can lose hours. Like I'm trying to like, okay, I'm just going to work on this a little bit. And then before you know it, it's like 6 o'clock and I haven't eaten, or, you know what I mean? So I'm trying to find the balance between getting locked in and working, but also reminding myself I don't have to, use a whole day to do something. I can pop in for an hour. Like the 20-minute thing probably wouldn't work for me unless I was writing like a first draft, because like, then I can kind of pop in and out and let stuff kind of simmer. But when I'm like editing, I feel like I need more time to really think over stuff and figure out where I'm going. But really like it's like momentum. Like for me, it's the momentum of just starting. And like, if I leave too many days in between without working on something, then it's like, oh, do I really want to start this up again? Like, I don't really, I'll just I need more breaks, which is never the case. It's just an excuse to not start. But once I have that, it's the long haul momentum over several days, and then I don't have to do as much every day. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, it sounds like you do get deep into your writing when you're there, but then you're doing it every day. Mm-hmm. So it is almost surface for you. Like it is something that you can like, like dip in the waves and then like come back up and be like, okay, I can go about my day now. Which is chunking it down, I think, is always, any goal that you're facing, I think you should just chunk it down and really make sure that when you're in motion, you stay in motion, that kind of thing. So I think that works especially well for you. But
it's taken a long time for me to figure out what my process is, because it's very easy, like especially in the writing community. I don't find it as much now because I'm still there, but not as much as I used to. Like when I first started really focusing on writing years and years ago, like Twitter was still huge, and that was like a great place to be back in the day. And I had a lot of writing companions that we would like join at the same time. We would write at the same time. It was a huge community, and I think it drove itself because when you're talking about something all the time, you're excited, you want to keep doing it. And it just feeds that momentum, right? But then over the years, like, everyone kind of left Twitter and we went to Instagram, and then everyone kind of spread out. And again, we were mostly a group of indie authors. Like I do have a few people that were traditionally published, and the journeys were similar, like same, but different. But then life got in the way, and a lot of people stopped writing, and it kind of fell away. And I think just the act of not talking about it all the time was enough to really fall off the, the momentum wheel, whatever you want. Insert fancy title here. But yeah, so then like trying to get back into it and creating your own little kind of momentum, it's been different. It's been great to have you along, obviously, when we connected, like, it was like 5 years ago, I guess. Yeah, that's crazy. Because the more you talk about it, the more you get excited about it and you want to be a part of it. You feel like you're a part of something bigger, right? Writing is very solitary for the most part. So when you're a part of something, it helps kind of drive that momentum forward.
Right. I think you're touching on kind of the duality of like being internally and externally motivated. Like you want to be externally motivated by like feeling part of something bigger, but you also have to find that why of like why you want to do it and why you show up every day to do it. Because I think a key point here is momentum alone is not going to do much. If you're, if you just put your foot on the gas and you have no direction, you're just going to run into a tree basically. But if you have, that community and those threads, I feel like you can kind of hang on to those a little bit more.
Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, it's a struggle. Like, I mean, if it doesn't matter what kind of creative person you are, you're going to go through gaps where you're not feeling super creative. Like, especially like again, if you're like for a writer, if you're working all day, regardless of what you're doing, most people work on computers, or a lot of people do. Like, to be on a computer all day and then to have to turn around and be on a computer all night is not particularly fun. So I have found ways to kind of combat that. Like, okay, if I'm writing something brand new, I write in a notebook. Like, I'm also old school, so I still handwrite. Most people don't. But for me, it gets me out of my head. It changes my scenery. I can be in a different location. It's literally just trying to find ways to trick my brain into getting back into it. Once I'm into it, it's fine. But it's just trying to be like, well, like I can tell myself, well, I've just sat at a computer all day. Like, I don't want to sit at a computer all day again. So it's just finding ways to kind of get past that excuse. But also, like you said, tapping into a community of people where you can be like, I'm not alone. I'm not unique, as we always say.
Yes.
We're not unique little snowflakes. We are all going through these same problems in slightly different ways. Like, we're still all snowflakes. We're just a little bit different, or whatever you want to say. But so it's important to have that community in some respect, and that's also not easy because it's also a competitive place to be, right? So,
well, right. I feel like everyone that you talk to has a little, has aspirations of being creative, if not the same aspirations as you, as of writing a book. So it is hard to see. That's probably another topic for another time, but it is like difficult to cheer people on when you are stuck and, like that kind of thing. But I think what's important there is knowing that you are not in a competition, and you will find yourself in time, and really leaning into that in a huge way, because I think jealousy can, pop up anytime, but like especially then when you're like on the same route kind of thing. I'm just jealous of Angie's red lipstick right now, so that's why I'm bringing this up, obviously.
Yeah, if you're not on YouTube, you're missing out on quality lipstick content here.
Out. Yeah, so that's why I bring that up. But I think what's great about our relationship is I don't feel that. I really do feel like you're my cheerleader, and you really do feel like but it helps because we're on different paths. Like we definitely have taken different ways to the same thing. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I think like getting back to the internally motivated and externally motivated, like you have to have a good healthy dose of both, but you also need to know what it is, because it's not different. It's not the same. It's different for everybody, right? Like, like you can be like, okay, well, I'm externally motivated to publish and make sales and blah, 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 whatever. But that's not enough. Like, it's because you're like one drop in a bucket. Like, let's be honest, you know what I mean? Like, you have to find a reason internally. And so although it's kind of weird for me, because although I'm internally motivated to finish this book and get it out there, I really had to figure out what's worst case and best case scenario. You know what I mean? Because if I just be like, well, I'm internally motivated to get this out so I can publish and get a career in writing and write for a living or whatever, like that, a lot of that stuff's out of my hands, right? Like, I can only do whatever I can do. So I had to find an internal reason to keep going if none of that external stuff happens. And that's been a journey, because you don't see that, like most people just want to talk about the writing for a living and being successful, and you compare yourself to others, which is again a whole nother topic about comparison. But you got to find your why for most things, and it can change. Like, it definitely can change. And I think it's just that's finding your why, and finding out why you're stopping yourself is probably the best.
Ooh, I love that. Tell me more about that. I want to hear it.
Yeah. Okay. Story time with Angie. Most of my internal reasons for stopping is fear. Like, it all boils down to me being afraid of failing, or being judged or whatever. Like on high level, I don't care about that because that's just who I am. Like I'm just like, yeah, whatever. But obviously there's a piece of me that's obviously going to care that the second book's not going to be as good as the first, or people aren't going to like it, or I'm not going to do a good job at marketing it. Like there's a lot of reasons why I shouldn't, well, not reasons, a lot of excuses that I make on why I shouldn't bother. But once I started stripping that away and realized that it all boiled down to fear that was stopping me, then I was able to be like, okay, like you can't push that nonsense away. You never will. Like that's just our internal critic that just will always be there. I don't believe anyone that says that they don't have one. I think they're just a lot better at not listening, but like we all have it. It doesn't matter what the topic is. But once you boil it down to being like, okay, it's fear that's stopping me, and I can identify that and be like, hey, that's great that you're afraid or like you're worried, but like we need to keep doing this. Then you almost like you were saying before, compartmentalize the differences and be like, okay, I'm afraid and I'm worried, but also I really want to finish this because what happens if I don't? And so once you get that piece going, for me, it was easier to keep going because then I was like, listen, your excuses are bullshit. So stop doing them.
Like I said in the first episode, like Angie calls everyone out on their bullshit, but also herself, which I think is huge. And I think is the difference between, like being a bully and being someone who could actually mentor you and coach you, because,
Well, I
they have
appreciate
to
you
look.
saying that.
Yeah, like they have to look inside themselves too, like otherwise it's
Yeah.
not, it's just one street advice. And I don't think that rings true with everyone.
You know what? I think like we all do it. We all do it. We all want to find reasons to not do the hard thing because living life at the easier part is easy for now, but not easy for later, right? So it's like the constant chatter of reminding yourself that this is easier now, but it will be harder later. If you do the hard thing now, you're setting yourself up for something easier. Well, I don't know necessarily. Life is not easy ever, but
No.
once you realize that, then you're like, well, I might as well do the hard thing that I enjoy as opposed to the hard thing I don't enjoy. But that stops a lot of people, and I think that a lot of people will use it as a reason on why they're not performing or not getting what they want or whatever. And I can say that from experience, like 100%. Like there's no reason I should have waited this long to publish the second book. It was fear because I kept telling myself, second book is not going to be as good and everyone's going to judge it because we all do. Second albums, second books, second movies, everyone's like really paying attention to that. But that's honestly, as much as it's true, it's also like, and it's an excuse, right? Like it keeps me in the comfortable zone of not failing because I'm not doing it.
I see. Yes, I do understand because like as I'm thinking of like all the sophomore albums and sequels and movies I've seen and how yes, they do carry that stereotype where they're not as good as the original, or they don't
They're
give
not
you
as good.
they just don't
Yeah.
give you the feelings that you were hoping for or whatever.
Which is
But
not always true. Like, come on,
it's
Terminator
not
2 is
always
way
true.
better first, in my opinion. Way better movie than the first one. But,
Yeah. Yeah, there's
it's the
exceptions.
lies we tell ourselves. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I
Yeah.
think it's getting too forward and too like too in the future about yourself and too anxious about the
Yeah.
future kind of thing. And
Yeah.
it's like you can see that Rolling Stone article already about how your album didn't come out well and it wasn't produced well, whatever. But like if you take yourself out of that and come back to the present, I feel like it's a lot easier to just be like, well, I can do this now and I can worry about that later kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's really what it is. And that's why I will call myself out on that all the time. And yeah, I mean, I'm not running around telling everybody why they got problems. but
No,
but I
no. Oh
mean,
my
if you
gosh,
come to
no.
me and anyone who comes to me, no, and I know you're not saying that, but I'm just saying like
Okay.
if someone comes to me and says, "Hey, like this is my problem," I'm going to be like, "Yeah, well, like get in line. I've heard that excuse before because I've made that excuse as many times as I've heard it." So but we all want to feel special and different. And we're not.
Well, we're
Or
not. And I think I take comfort in that. I think I take the fact that,
yeah.
that we're all human at some level, obviously, but like, especially with
Yeah.
creative pursuits, I
Yeah.
think we're all the same kind
Yeah.
of that way. Um, so I
Yeah.
think, um, you can edit this out, but my dog's in here with her toy. So anyway,
Not a problem.
yeah. So I think for me, like, and I don't know if we want to like just kind of keep going with you for one
Yeah.
episode and then talk about me, but like,
No,
okay,
let's go with you. I've already
okay.
said enough.
Not. I think you. I think. I think something else I want to say about Angie is that she's highly logical, and I think that helps a lot with silencing your inner critic because when you start to hear someone say like have an excuse, you can undercut that and undermine that by just being logical and just being like, well, that's silly, like that anxiety that turns a rumor mill in your head is like, can really be like, well, if it's raining, then I'm gonna get wet kind of thing. But it's like, well, yeah, that's logical kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's a bad example, but like kind of, do you know what I mean there? Like,
No,
it's like,
it's a good, yeah, for sure. Like, because I mean, it, it gets me in trouble a lot because, I mean, a lot of people are like, you're so cold, you're so, you're not thinking about, and I'm just like, listen, bare minimum, I appreciate how difficult it is. I appreciate emotions. I have them. I'm not a robot. I have them, but
absolutely.
I'm trying as much as possible to put them aside to be like, listen, my emotions are good when I need them to write the story, to tap into a character, whatever. But my emotions, letting them drive this car is we're going all like we're not going anywhere good. Okay. So I
Absolutely.
try to use my logic to be like, you're not necessarily going to get the emotions out of the driver's seat, but you can kind of be like, hey, maybe we should kind of go this way, or maybe we should go that way, or, like, as opposed to being like, let me take over, like, because you can't really do that either. But I try to just remind myself that, like, when it comes down to it, this is just an excuse. It is not a reflection of who I am or whatever. It is just a design mechanism to keep me safe and comfortable. And safe and comfortable is great, unless you're trying to create something. And then it's not, because you need to get out of that comfort zone if you're going to create that big thing, but because it's uncomfortable.
That was beautifully said. Like, truly, truly. I think that was
Cut it
like,
up. That's
yeah.
hashtag it somewhere.
That was really beautifully said. I think because like comfort and being uncomfortable, it has nothing to do with being creative. I mean the opposite. I mean,
I,
like being comfortable and
being
stuff.
uncomfortable. Yes.
You know what I mean? Like
Being
the other thing
comfortable,
about
yeah, being comfortable it doesn't help your
creative,
creativity.
exactly. I
Yes.
think also the good thing about Angie is she unwinds my sentences a little bit. So like she obviously just did it right there. Like so like sorry if I just like absolutely say the opposite of what I mean.
Oh.
She'll correct us. It's fine. Um
No, no, no. We're good. We're good.
but well, like it isn't a cold like, thing to be logical. I think for me, I like we said before, it's same but different. Like I am very, very emotions in the driver's seat. And I think we've talked about it before, how that kind of makes us different people, but also good for different things, like um it's kind of like not square peg in a round hole kind of thing. It really is just like,
Yeah.
the being who you are and wanting to be like, um, you know, and leading with that first and leaning into that. I think I'm going to say
Yeah.
that a lot. Um, and
Yeah.
not judging yourself for that either. I think like, like
Yeah.
being logical and being emotional are two different strengths. They could be curses, but I think they are, are important to you and to me.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
yeah, that's how I feel.
Yeah. You got to have that balance, and you got to you have to figure out like who needs to be taking the reins. You know what I mean? Like the
Right.
emotional part of you, or me, or whoever, the emotional part of us, is great for tapping into the writing and getting to the character, right to the heart of the character. So fantastic. But when it comes to the drive and getting shit done and self-publishing, like that's, in my opinion, a logical thing that you need, or a more like straight-laced thing, because the emotion side of you is like, this is hard, I don't want to do it. Like that,
Yep.
that's literally my everyday. Like as much as I, finished the editing and that was hard, like I said to my husband the other day, I was like, oh my God, like I have so much stuff to do. And like, he's like, yeah, but you did the hard part. I'm like, dude, the writing was not the hard part for me. This is the hard part for me. He's like, well, when you were writing it, it was the hard part for me. And I was like, you make a point there. Like, it's always hard at every stage. It just seems easier now because I wrote the book. Like, he was like, well, it wasn't that long ago that you didn't have an ending. And I was like, stop talking logic to me at this point. Listen, I'm the logical one. You go back to your non-logic stuff. No, it's fine. But he reminded me that every stage is going to feel hard and difficult, because I'm in that stage. And, it's a lot easier to look back and be like, oh, well, that was easy because it's done. So, and, a lot of the stuff that I have to do is stuff that I'm not, I love the writing part. I enjoy that. It's hard, but I enjoy it. But all the other stuff that I have to do, designing a cover, marketing, all the technical stuff, I can do it. I don't like it. And so I am, resistant to it. But, it was just kind of funny how I was like, that was the easy part. He was like, no, it wasn't. I was there.
I don't think you could have given me a better segue, but why do you feel like you enjoy writing and not the other stuff? Like, what do you enjoy about writing?
I think it's just because it taps into my love of imagination and creating a world that doesn't exist, or creating an aspect of a world, or just the imagination, like the make-believe part of life that I've always enjoyed. Like I love, sounds weird, I mean, I love sleeping because I love dreaming, because dreaming is like telling me stories while I'm asleep, you know what I mean? And so I love that because it's very creative, and that's the part I love. And although the other stuff, like designing a cover, is creative, but it's like it's tapping into skills that they're not at like my forefront of like my tool belt.
Yes.
And so it's like it doesn't come quite as like first nature to me. So although I can do it, it's not as interesting to me. So, and like all the technical stuff and the marketing stuff, well, I'm not great at promoting myself at all. I'm like, hey, I wrote this book, please don't read it. That's my big catchphrase.
She does.
Which doesn't get you anywhere.
No.
Yes. Everyone's like, your book is so great. I'm like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, well.
If you could stop talking right now, that'd be fantastic. I'm not great with compliments either. And then when people talk about the book in front of me, like as a group, which I've had happen, like I where I work, people I work with have read it and they talk about it, and I'm like, you're really making me uncomfortable right now. So if you could just stop talking about it, which is not great when you're trying to sell your own book.
Yeah, but do you have any tips for that? Like, do you feel like
I'm winging it easier? Honestly, like no,
fake it till you make it. Yeah,
it hasn't. It 100%. Like, it has not gotten easier at all. In fact, I think it may have been. It's harder because now I've waited so long after the first one. Like, if I had used the momentum off of the momentum off the first book to be like, hey, I'm already selling you this. You've bought in. Oh yeah, there's another one. Like, it kind of would have generated itself. And I do have people who ask me all the time about the second book, and I'm very grateful for that. Like, I can't even express how grateful I am for that. And yet, a part of me is like, wow, they're really just trying to be nice. So, like, what do they want? You know what I mean? It hasn't got easier. I don't know if it ever will. Like, I just don't know. Like, I'm also Canadian, and we are like forever being like, we don't want to inconvenience you. It's a stereotype, but it's mostly true for most of us. Like, if you might be interested in please reading this thing. I'm sorry, don't like, we're very worried about offending people. So I don't know how to tap into that. I did have a conversation with someone years ago another American friend of mine, and she was just like, just say this. And I was like, oh, like, I could never say that. And I was like, you can say it for me, but I can't say that. Like, so I don't know if it's like ingrained in our culture as well too, but yeah, it doesn't get easier. Not for me, it hasn't.
No,
Yeah.
I think I'm honorary
So
Canadian because I am the same way. Um, in that respect, I feel like I am very cautious and very unwilling to offend, and definitely don't want to push anything down anyone's throat. So it's hard to be in a place where you're like, I made this and you should read it, kind of thing. So
yeah,
and I think
like I
it's
want people to
also
read it.
right,
I just don't want to
right,
tell them to read it. I want someone else to tell them to read it and then
exactly.
not tell me that they told.
Well, and it's unique too because it's like its own effort to reading it, like it's not a piece of
Yeah.
art that you can go and just stare at for hours. Like well, I guess you
No.
kind of do, but like, like you
You
have
do,
to,
but it's you're everything's interpreted, but like the
yes,
written word is like it's not like abstract art. You know what I
right,
mean? Like it's like this it has to follow a logical proceed even though it's creative, it has to have a beginning, it has to have a middle and an end. And even if you don't understand that on a level of a writer, all the points, you will notice it as a reader if it's not there. You won't understand
absolutely.
it, how to verbalize it. You'll just be like, it didn't hit properly. Like, I don't know, something wasn't right. And you're like, yeah, because they didn't have an ending, or you didn't have high consequences, or all the technical terms that as authors we understand because we've had to understand it. Because it's jammed down your throat to understand it. But you will. It's like watching a movie that has no point. You will finish it and go, "What?" Like I don't understand movie making. I've never made a movie, but I can tell you, I know bad movies if they don't hit that certain point, and that's really what it is. So it's a lot of pressure because everyone knows how to read for the most part.
Yeah,
And I mean, if you're picking up a book, you obviously do, and you know the order it's supposed to follow. It's not like, well, I'm interpreting this. Like those ones don't go very far. Like interpretive writing is probably a thing, but like it's not as popular because it's just not.
yeah, it's interesting because it's like it's so subjective in the way that your readers kind of read and take what they want from your writing, and you don't necessarily get to say what it is that they take away, but at the same
Yeah.
time, they like you're saying, they really do know when something's off or something's not clicking or something's not even
Yeah.
logical, like kind of thing. So it's really
Yeah.
important to balance all of that and give breath and space to what they're going to interpret from your book, but also giving them something like that's something to latch on to. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. So like getting back to because now we've talked about me, I think forever.
I think that's good. I think we're
And
we're
you're
gonna
talking
just we're just gonna round this up.
circle back to this is what Bailey does. Bailey gets me talking. She knows that I'll just keep going. And then I'll be like, hey, what about you? And she'll be like, yes, but about you. And then and then it's like, okay, we got to circle back. She's really good at deflecting. Top mark.
I
So
am.
you started
Yeah.
this saying I'm a little bit blocked, but let's talk about Angie. So
Yeah,
now we're going to
no,
talk about Bailey.
I mean, like, to be fair, all of what you're saying, like, really helped me center myself because
Yeah.
I'm at a point now where, I wasn't doing, I started doing morning pages from the artist way and that kind of thing. And that really helped me. And now I don't know why I'm writing and I don't have that why. And I have the fear, like,
Yeah.
sandwiched on top of that. So I'm like,
Yeah.
well, what if I just didn't? Like, what if I just didn't write and just, like, this was something I really loved when I was in, growing up and like everything. And what if it just kind of like doesn't happen for me and I don't do it anymore? And it's,
Mhm.
I think a lot of the things you were saying, actually talking about your own process helped me understand like where I'm coming from, which is exactly what I said. It's just I don't have a why right now. I don't have something that I really enjoy about writing. It seems like a job and a task and a chore. And I need to find that why, but I also need to kind of like erase the fear a little bit, because the emotion side of it
Yeah.
is very big for me. So I'm very nervous about
Yeah.
like just, like getting things out there and receiving feedback and doing that stuff. So it's two-pronged for me. So I think this
Yes.
episode has really helped me think about it in a different way, but I also need to think about it more. So, um,
Yeah, I mean, like that's the thing, is that when you're already feeling that fear, you can find a ton of reasons why you don't like writing. And sometimes some of the stuff might be that it's true, like you're not enjoying what it is you're working on, or, like that idea was really, you were really interested into it, but now you're not. But like it just kind of like makes it worse, because then you start to spiral and be like, okay, well, if I'm not enjoying this and it feels like, then it feels like work. And if it feels like work, then I shouldn't be doing it. And then you just like stack up all the stuff on top of it. And then you have no idea. And I mean, again, speaking from experience, I did that. I did not write for a good year, maybe a year and a
yes,
half. I didn't write.
yes,
And was like, no, I'm never doing this again. And that was just 100% exclusive fear. I didn't know that at the time. I was just like, no, I think this was a thing that I liked, and I don't really want to do it. But again, we really buy into the lies that we tell ourselves because it's comfortable,
yes,
and it takes work to figure out the why. But once you find the why, and it doesn't have to be anything dramatic, like it doesn't have to be like, I must tell the story so that the future ages, whatever. It can be as simple as like, I do enjoy it, and I have something to say. And if nobody listens to it, that's fine, but I'm just writing it for myself, or you know what I mean? Like it doesn't have to be this big thing. Although it's easier for us to say that it's a big thing, because then it stops us from, doing it.
yeah. No, I think that's a huge point there. It's just like the ability to recognize what's fear and what's actually getting in
Yeah.
your way, and what's the excuse and what's a rationale, and like what's actually reasonable for you. Um, I think it's also important to note that like creative things are for yourself first.
Yes.
I think
Yeah.
every time you pick something up like crochet or like knitting or like even, movie making or painting or anything like that, it should be for yourself first, to get that kind of like thing off your chest kind of thing. I
Yeah.
don't know. I feel like that a lot, like where I don't know what I think about something until I write about it. I think Flannery
Yeah.
O'Connor said that. And I really resonate with that quote, because it's like I really need to step out of my body, out of my emotions, out of all of that, and just kind of make sure that
Yeah.
I have something down on a page. And then I'm like, oh, I didn't know I didn't like pickles, or what, whatever,
Yeah. Who
So,
doesn't like pickles? Come
I
on.
mean, I love pickles. My husband hates them. Hates them.
I know.
Oh, but it's great because I get all
That's
his
a
pickles.
whole
I
nother
mean,
thing.
like
Well, yeah,
that's
that's true. I mean,
perfect.
that's good. Yes.
But yeah, so we have about 5 minutes left in this episode. Anything
Yeah.
you want to wrap it up with, Angie?
Yeah, yeah. Like, I mean, I think this is something we could talk about, and we probably will talk about a lot. You know what I mean? Like, it's how do you get started? How do you keep going? How do you find the reason why? I mean, we could literally have a whole episode on like, what's your why? And that could change, but like I said, I don't think it needs to be dramatic. I think it needs to just be, it could be as simple as like, I just like it, like it doesn't, it doesn't have to be like, I need to do this because I need to like I said, make a career out of it. And that stuff can still happen. But I think once you start looking that far out, it's makes it hard to start, because it seems like a whole lot of pressure to be like, okay, well, when I write, I'm writing, my whole life and career depend upon this. And like, who can handle that much pressure?
Right, right, exactly. So yeah, exactly. Like, so you can't,
Yeah.
I think you can't Lin-Manuel Miranda things and say like, this is going to be the best thing I've ever written before I start
Yeah.
writing. That worked for him, obviously, but like, it just, I think for us normal talented people, but like not super duper like superstars, like we do have to take a step back and put the horse before the cart a little bit. Um,
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I think that's the thing is that if you write for yourself first, then all you can do is the best that you can do. Like it doesn't
right.
really matter after that because like this is the story that you want to tell and it's true to your ideas. And
Yes.
so it may be the best thing you ever write and you may know that when you're writing it because it's the best thing that you wrote for yourself and it just so happens that other people also feel like it's the best thing, but like that doesn't really matter, I guess. Like, like at the end of the day, you have to find the thing that keeps you going. And
Yes.
for me, like, as much as I would love to write for a living, and obviously that's still something that I'm striving for, like, you can't get there until you do it. I can't write for a
Exactly.
living. It's not like it's not a job I can apply for. I have to do the work and hope that it follows and catches up, right? So that was kind of another thing, like just reminding myself that if I don't do the work, I will never get to that goal because I have to do something to get there. So,
Yeah, and it levels you up as a human too. I feel like I love this quote that's just like you don't have to, you know, be the best at something. You can just be the best you, and I think that's really important too when you're writing is or doing anything creative. I think this applies to
yep.
all creative pursuits is just, be the best thing that you can be. And I know I sound like a Hallmark channel. I'm sorry.
No, but it's
But like
honestly like cliches are cliche for a reason because they're
right,
they're true. Like
right.
if you're not enjoying what you're doing, um, you got to figure out your why. And if it's because you're putting blocks in front of yourself to make it worse, then you can change that. You can remove those blocks.
Yes.
If it's because you really
Yes.
just don't like that thing, then just change the thing, and
Right.
try something different. But it takes work.
It really does. And I think we'll talk about that next time, about how
Yeah.
we do how we get work done and what kind of workers we are. I think that's a great topic for further discussion. Um,
I
but
agree.
yeah, I think that's it for now. If you have feedback, leave a comment.
Yep.
Anything else, Angie?
Yeah, I think that's about it.
Okay.
I think
All right.
we covered a lot today. Yeah.
Yes, we did. So if you want to tune in, we're going to be posted on Thursdays, we think, and we are going to be on YouTube and hopefully on Spotify. So you will hear us there for
Yep.
your viewing and listening pleasure. Um, yeah,
Yep.
go out there and get some momentum.
Sounds good.
All right. Bye.
Bye.